All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here on the latest podcast episode of Big League Dreaming, the podcast, a podcast about baseball, dreams, and family. It's a show about a dad and his three sons talking about the game they love. Our dad, John, and then my two little brothers, Ty and Zane. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We're doing like a special edition, I guess you could say, little series. So this will be a roundtable series where each of us will be able to bring in friends or insiders of our favorite baseball team and just talk about the team we love and the game we love. So tonight I have my three friends, Steve, Andrew, and Jeremy, on with me tonight. Excited to introduce you guys to everyone. And yeah, we'll just go around. Steve, I mean, I've known you the longest. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing well, doing well. It's a little rainy out here in the Pacific Northwest, but it's almost baseball season, and spring's coming.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I mean, I'm in North Carolina. I know all three of you guys are in the great state of Washington. Andrew, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I'm fresh off a trip to Arizona for spring training, so the rain is not a welcome sight for me, but yeah, happy to be here.
You're probably used to it in the winter though at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeremy, what's going on, man? How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. I was able to, take a break from my 1 week old daughter, which I'm not excited about, but
Yes.
I'll do it for you guys. I'm excited to talk Mariners baseball and excited, speaking about weather, I saw like 8 straight days of sun in the eastern side of Washington, 65 plus. So looking pretty nice. I think spring's coming.
Spring is coming. I mean, I see the tweets from Mariners every single day with the countdown of days until opening day and like the player headshot and things like that. I think we're at like 19, 18 days until opening day at the time that we're recording this podcast. So yeah, this is definitely a time that we all wanted to like hop on and just chat about Mariners because it's a very exciting time. Season's getting going, some big expectations. So we're all really excited. I thought it would be like the proper way to just go around and tell everyone like how our Mariners fandom came to be. So I guess Steve, you want to go first and just tell like kind of like some personal stories or like background, like what really got you? Because all like the four of us on this call, like we watch almost every single Mariners game. Like we are like very invested in this team
Blue
at this
blue.
point. So like, how did it all happen for you?
Yeah, so my dad grew up a big baseball fan, and certainly that had a big impact. Loved playing Little League baseball, but some of the earliest memories that that I have are at the Kingdom when I was like I was a couple years old. My dad had partial season tickets. He'd take me to games, and I mean, I had no idea what's going on at the time, but I just remember being there and the energy in the stadium, and falling asleep before the game ended, and just like waking up at home, and just like that was an amazing night. And that kind of turned into over the years like our special bonding thing that we would do together. So he would always pull me out of school on the first day of the season for the home openers, pull me out, take me to games, take me to other occasional like matinee day games. And we just been to so many games over the years. Playoff games. There were very few. Went to a couple in '95 though, or whatever year it was. It was very little. But point is, spent a lot of time at the Kingdom. My dad growing up. I remember when they took the Kingdom down. My dad took me and my siblings to nearby Beacon Hill. Found a little viewpoint. Watched it go down. And the Mariners are just there's in my blood. And this group is a big reason or a big part of it now.
Yeah, I know you grew up right there outside of Seattle, so you've been there firsthand through it all. And Andrew, you too, right? You're from Seattle originally, still live there now.
Yeah, exactly. I actually I was thinking I don't have a ton of memories going to the Kingdom. I don't think I went as much as Steve did when I was a little kid, but I remember a lot of my first memories in the Mariners in the 2001 season, where one of my first Mariners memories was falling asleep listening to Dave Niehaus on the opening day of that season. And they were behind when I fell asleep. And I woke up and my dad told me they came back and won. And I was like, something special about this team. And they ended up winning, 115 more games. I went to a good handful of those. another. I loved watching those teams, those early 2000s teams. But the first player I feel like I really connected with was Felix Hernandez. I was also listening on the radio at his first game when he was 19 years old in 2005, and he and I were both teenagers at the time. I felt like it was really fun to watch him. His career through 15 years. Steve and I ended up going to his last game a few years ago, his last start. And after high school and college, in 2000, I felt like, Steve and I have been friends for 20 plus years at this point. And I felt like Steve and I really connected to I don't know how much you'll remember this, the 2014 team. It was a very weird team. It was Felix and Cano and Seager and basically no one else. But they had a really funny roster. They had a great bullpen. Felix was one of his all-time great seasons, and they missed the playoffs by one game. But during the end of that year, I just remember us really started to pay attention every day. And Steve and I had season tickets the 4 years after that, which was a lot of fun. And now it's just now I have a couple kids of my own. Steve talks about his connection with his dad, and it's fun for me. I have a 4-year-old son that loves to go to games. I've probably taken him to 10 or 15 games already. And it's been a lot of fun.
Chasing autographs, right?
Oh yeah, always. That's right.
That's awesome, man. And then Jeremy, I know you live out kind of Spokane, the eastern part of Washington now. Is that originally where you're from? And how did your Mariners fandom come to be?
Yeah, so I am originally from Spokane, Washington. Grew up there, lived there for his 18 years of my life, and my family just loves sports. And so from the moment I've seen pictures of me as a baby with like little Mariners gear, Seahawks gear, Sonics gear, and for us, it's a 4-hour drive to Seattle. So I probably didn't go to as many games as Ange and Steve growing up, but we would Seattle was our big trip. So we'd have, and I remember sometimes we'd do it in like a deck. Like we'd go over, see a game, and then come back the same day, which to me now as a new dad sounds insane. And I would probably never do that. But one of my earliest memories that I can remember, we actually went to the very last game at the Kingdom. I know we went to a couple before that too, but we went to the very last game at the Kingdom. And I remember Griffey hit a home run. And then I remember that there was a streaker in the outfield, because we were in the outfield. We were probably in like right center, if I remember correctly. And I had to be, so I was probably 99. I was like 8 years old, 8.5 years old. And I just remember it was a crazy memory. And my parents were like, this is the last game of the Kingdom. You got to go. And as Steve said, I remember watching it get torn down on TV. And I remember I was sad. Like, it made me like cry. I don't know. Even though like I didn't go to that many games, but it was sad for some reason. But then, and then my Mariners fandom continued. I remember that was early. I was a big Brett Boone fan just because I loved second base, and I always wanted to play second base, even though my baseball coaches would never let me play second base because I was too tall, I guess. I don't know. It seems like a dumb rule. But and then as time went on, and I went to college in Seattle with Ange, and then I actually had the privilege of working for the Mariners for 2 years. First year as a navigator, which is the in-game promotions and marketing people. The people at the games you'll see in the teal jerseys with their names on the back. And that was really awesome because I would just be at every game I could be at, either working or if I was off, I could go sit wherever I wanted. And the team wasn't very good that year, so I could kind of sit really wherever I wanted. I probably sat in almost every section of T-Mobile Park, formerly known as Safeco Field. And then one of the biggest memories, I was at Felix's perfect game. That was pretty special. They let us off in the 5th inning, and then we just got to watch the rest of the game. And fun fact, I'd seen 2 perfect games in person because that same year, Philip Umber of the Chicago White Sox threw a perfect game against Seattle Mariners. And so I have seen 2 perfect games in person, which is a rare, I think, accomplishment, which I'm proud of.
That's a very exclusive list, Jer.
I know. And then the next year, I got the opportunity to be the visiting team bat boy, which was also a very unique experience because I am a diehard Mariners fan, but I was in the visiting clubhouse for the third of the games, and you're not allowed to root for the Mariners. And also, you'd get tipped at the end of the series by the visiting team. and they're usually in a better mood and tip better if they win the series. So you're kind of like, if the Mariners aren't very good this year, it's okay if we get like swept. But that was a fun memory. And then yeah, I lived in California for about 8 years. Would go to every Mariners Angels game, and I hate Angel Stadium. I have nothing nice to say about that stadium, and I'm glad I don't have to go there anymore. And now I'm back in Spokane, Washington, where I hope to take my new daughter to some games here in the future. Last year, I got her a little pink Mariner hat, so we're ready to go. Yeah.
Man, I didn't know about the Bat Boy stuff. I'm gonna have to ask you some questions.
I'm
sure you got some good stories about that.
We don't let Jared root against the Mariners anymore.
All these baseballs are players that on teams that I bat boyed for. So I was able to get an autograph at the end of the season.
Who is your number one away team player?
Like coolest, or just like, I think Big Papi
left an impression on you.
Big Papi was pretty cool, man. Like he was a really cool guy. Yeah, like really genuine, nice man. Like, because a lot of people, like some players, like would pay attention to you and have conversations with you. Some would just kind of ignore you. But he was really nice and remembered your name, and I remember his kid was there at the same time. Must have been traveling with the team. And his kid at the time probably had to be like 9, 10, huge kid. And I know now he's like I think he's a prospect for some team. In fact, so that was kind of funny. And I remember also other random players like Rajay Davis was really nice, and we bonded over both having the same last name, Davis. And Andrew Romine specifically, former Mariner, he was on the Angels at the time. He was any guy that was like a bench player, because they were in the dugout a lot, so they talked to you. Yeah, pretty cool experience as a lifelong baseball fan and player.
I did have to be bat boy one game for the West Michigan Whitecaps, Steve, when we worked for them, and Miguel Sano was in the dugout. I definitely remember being right there by him. It was a unique experience. I didn't really enjoy being bat boy, but
fun fact, that was the same year that Felix threw his perfect game, that we lived together and worked for the Whitecaps. I remember coming home from the stadium, and I feel like the M's game was in like the 8th inning or something, and they were just like, we just had like a buzz in the air between us, and you got the final out, and I just like yelled.
Yeah, and all of like the Felixing stuff that went around right after that. Yeah, I remember that very, very vividly. So my Mariners fandom, and I've shared this story on our podcast before. I'm sure all you guys know this story, but growing up in West Michigan, the Detroit Tigers weren't very good. I asked my dad who the best home run hitter was. He said Ken Griffey Jr. So I was probably 5 years old. So instantly he was my favorite player. Mariners were my favorite team, naturally. So like for T-ball, like we had these little baseball cards that got printed out for us, and on the back, when I was 4 and 5 years old, who's your favorite team? Seattle Mariners. Who's your favorite player? Ken Griffey Jr. And I just always followed them in the box scores because I couldn't watch them on TV. They were never on ESPN or anything like that. But then when I was in high school, MLB Extra Innings came out, which is now kind of like MLB.TV. I got to watch a lot of games really for the first time when I was in high school, kind of like those early 2000s teams that you mentioned, Ange. And then going to college, I played college baseball, so I wasn't really watching a whole lot of Mariners. And then working in minor league baseball, I couldn't really watch very many games because you work 60 to 80 hours a week. But in 2014, the Mariners podcast came out. Gary Hill made that for the first time. And when I found that podcast, he would put out these little 30-minute podcasts 5 days a week. And it was like all this access I never really knew about. And I was hearing player interviews for the first time. I was learning who like the on-field people were interviewing these players are. I was hearing like the radio guys and announcers and commentators like really more than I ever had before. Because at that time, Gary Hill, he wasn't one of the radio guys like he is now. He was kind of like behind the scenes and things like that. So he had a lot more time to put out the podcast. And then 2014, like you said, Ange, that season, I followed that season very closely. Felix on the mound that very last game when they took him out, when they were eliminated. And now they have the last game of the season all played at the very same time, so that teams can't take advantage of that, being on the West Coast. So yeah, and now being a roommates with Steve in 2012, and just kind of like being able to talk to you guys, Mariners, every single day, talking every game, things like that has really elevated, I guess my Mariners fandom. So now that we're all like happy and like feeling good, let's go into 2023. Let's go into last year. We barely missed the playoffs just by a game and a half, 2 games, whatever you want to call it. We had to watch the in-division rivals go on to win the World Series with the Rangers. The Astros won the division. We were so close. What were some like things that stood out for each of you guys? And yeah, just talk a little bit about like what surprised you for 2023. Steve, you want to go first?
Yeah, for me, it's just 3 words. So many strikeouts, and it's a very frustrating season. A lot of promise, a lot of pain, and to come up 1 game short, like we've done so many times, it's just hard to swallow. I'm just thankful that at least it wasn't the Astros win the World Series this year, but still in the division that really hurt. But for me, for a front office that professes publicly control the zone, I have a hard time accepting putting that collection of players together where you have like 3 of the top, I don't know, 5 to 10 players in all of MLB and strikeouts. Wanted to bring them in, and then to not at least put like a coaching program together, coach them up to change their approach and get them to buy in to get that under control. I mean, we always talk about had to get a run on third, less than 2 outs. I mean, I don't know, in our lifetime, it was even worse last year. But we just didn't get him in. And then when you combine that with the fact that we led MLB, or at least the AL and ERA, and did not make the playoffs. I mean, the number of times that's happened in MLB history, especially with this expanded playoff format, it has to be a very short list if any other teams have ever done that. And even with all the strikeouts, our actual runs scored were not like the very bottom. So to have that combination and not make the playoffs it was really difficult. And just because we lost so many close games, and when you throw in our bullpen, we should be winning all those close games too. So those are really difficult for me. But the upside, we are so lucky to have the rotation that we've had for the last couple of years, and that looks like it's only getting stronger when you throw Kirby in the mix and Logan only getting better, and then you throw full season of Wu and Bryce in the mix. There's just a lot of excitement there. So, I mean, this is our window. It stinks to not have an owner that is not all in unwilling like we've seen with some other teams like the Phillies and the Braves and all the other usual players. Still feel, we're lucky, but we're not satisfied.
What was your take on last year, Ange?
Yeah, it was the first time. I agree with a lot of what Steve said. I mean, it seems like the luck ran out. In 2021, we had this crazy team that won 90 games but had a negative 50 run differential, and their PSAG wins were like 76, and then in 2023 it was not quite the full reverse, but they actually was projected to win. Their PSAG wins were 91 compared to the 88 that they actually got, and it just felt like we lost so many more 1-run games that we did the last 2 years. I don't know if that's bullpen health was a piece of it, maybe bullpen decisions, or just a little bit of luck ran out. And I think that you could argue that this was the best team we've had in the last 3 years of the 3 teams that essentially won 90 games, but the luck ran out a little bit. I mean, I'm a pretty optimistic Mariners fan, so I like to look at the positives. And Steve kind of mentioned this core that we have is incredible, and they all performed. They all almost all had career years, and we have them under contract for solid with JP career year contract through 26, Cal and Logan through 27. Cal had an incredible year. George Kirby and Castillo through 28, and then Julio through 2030. I mean, that's for your core to all perform so well and during 1 year and show, hey, this is something that that could really lead forward through multiple years. And like Miller and Wu, Munoz and Brash, they're long term. It's very exciting, but it's kind of, what went wrong, I felt like was trying to fill around the edges of that core. But the additions that we made in the offseason just didn't work out. And it was so crazy how poorly they played compared to years before. Like Teoscar Hernandez was essentially an average hitter compared to, above average seasons before that. Colton Wong just completely fell apart. I mean, if we thought he was going to be a real piece, a real contributor, he had a WRC plus for the Mariners of 35, which is not great. When the average
35 higher than I expected. But
he had 2 seasons over 100 with the Brewers before that, and then once he went to the Dodgers, his WRC plus was 130. So I'm not sure what happened.
What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of things these guys say. I think the biggest thing that was so frustrating for me is you're coming off a season in 2022 where you make the playoffs, you win a series in Toronto, you should have won 2 games in Houston and then lose a 18-inning thriller that we were all at T-Mobile. And you achieve that, you end that drought, and the most frustrating thing is you go into that offseason where the All-Star games come to Seattle, and you go and sign A.J. Pollock, you go and sign Colton Wong, or you trade for Colton Wong. I mean, you got rid of Jesse Winker, which is fine. But it's like the additions this team, especially with other people that are available too, it's just so frustrating because this team is it's the top of the league in terms of baseball, everything else outside of all on the field. Like, I know firsthand from working for the Mariners, this team and the people running the team in terms of like fan experience, the ballpark, it's top of the league. It's really well done. And it's such a shame that with such a strong fan base that Seattle has, we see it with the 12s and the Seahawks, and we see it when the Mariners are good. This team is supported. And this team's really good at making money. We've seen all those reports that talk about profit and like how much the Mariners make. And yet I don't know why. Again, I'm not a big numbers guy. I'll leave that to you guys. I know Steve always ha-has all my texts when I ask every year what is I think this is the first year I might not ask what arbitration means. But because I don't care about contracts and like just are they on the team this year? Okay, I'll pay attention. But and then you go and you just and another thing that I'm hoping the team can do a little bit different. We'll get a bit more this year, but they come out of the gates with a terrible April, and they always are putting themselves in a hole. And they have this great summer stretch. Excuse me, I'll get some water. And then you're in contention at the trade deadline. You go and trade your closer. You trade your closer. Teams that are going to the playoffs don't trade their closer, who's an amazing closer, to a team that went to the World Series. In the clubhouse. And Ryan Bliss aside, we'll get to him. But it's just it's so mind-boggling. And we'll get into it when we talk about this last offseason, but I feel like Jerry and team are under ridiculous constraints. And I think with the constraints that they operate within, they do a pretty good job. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. But it's just, as Steve said, we need ownership that can just support the product on the field a little bit more. Like, we're still in the bottom third of payroll every year, and we're not that in terms of market and in terms of fan support and we all look at how successful and how full that ballpark is at the end of the playoff stretch or in playoffs. So I think just if you had to summarize 2023, a lot of it is just underperforming. A lot of it's consistency, as Steve said. That team was so inconsistent. It's just mind-boggling. Like, they would have stretches where they look like an amazing team. They're like, how are they putting this together? And then they have stretches, as Steve said, where strikeout, or we just get guys at third and no one can do the basic things of a sack fly or just hitting the balls at the right side of the infield to score the runner from third. like little simple things that I think like that I'm eager to talk about for this 2024 team that I think a lot of guys on this roster I think might exemplify. But yeah, 2023, I don't know. Good
I
riddance.
can't believe no one's mentioned Tommy Listello or Cooper Hummel yet.
I've been biting my tongues.
I look, amazingly, they only had 50 plate appearances between them, but it was like still negative 1.5 F4 between them in those 50 plate appearances.
My big thing with Jerry is he has done the organization is in so much better condition than it was it 7-8 years now he's been with us, but he just cannot help himself from tinkering on the margins of the roster. Like, have some continuity.
Yeah. We finally have a second baseman now. But when's the last time we had a second baseman?
Yeah,
we thought we did last year.
We've said that 3 years in a row now.
That I don't know.
Well, something
a little different.
that stuck out 2023 for me. How about that August though? 21,
that was fun. That was
21 wins for the month of August. 21 wins is the Mariners franchise record for most wins in a single month. Julio,
they have the pitching.
Julio was just on fire. I mean, like, I say the term on fire, but it was like, can you be more than on fire? I don't know.
It's historical.
He was the best player in baseball for him.
It was unreal. And to go back to Jeremy's point, like, they went into that trade deadline and they lost Paul Sewald. Sure, like, I understand it. You got 3 players for him. You trade Paul Sewald, who you got like from the Mets for nothing, and you trade him at his highest value. You got 3 players for him. Break out Dominic Canzone. You got a potential promising prospect with Brian Bliss. I mean, like, I get it, but no, they didn't expect to go on that 21 wins in August right after that. No. But it happened. And then September comes and you don't have that surefire piece in the bullpen. And those one-run games, they were winning one-run games like crazy in 2022. And then 2023, it just didn't happen. But if they had that extra bullpen piece, I mean, it's like, by how many games do they win the West? Like who knows what would have happened? They could not
manufacture a run in the late innings.
So
home run and nothing. 2024.
I mean, expectations are very high coming off of hosting the All-Star game, not making the playoffs. I guess predictions or expectations. What does the team need to do to be able to make the playoffs in 2024? I mean, they're so close. They brought in a bunch of new guys, free agent Mitch Garver, Mitch Haniger. They traded for Mitch Haniger. Haniger's back. Jorge Polanco at second base, everyday second baseman. All these new guys. Is it gonna be enough? Is the health gonna be there? How are we feeling, guys?
Can I start with a trivia question for the group?
Yes.
Okay. Behind Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, and J.P. Crawford, of the returning Mariners hitters, who had the highest F4 on the Mariners last year of returning hitters? So we're not looking for new people.
Does Mitch count?
No, Mitch does not count. It probably wasn't him. He was injured all year anyway.
I know. I just wanted
Ty France.
Not Ty France. Not even
going to say Tom Murphy.
Not Tom Murphy. He's also not
returning.
Oh, he said returning. Sorry.
Dylan Moore is third on that list. Second on the list is Cade Marlowe. And first on the list is Josh Rojas.
Oh.
Josh Rojas is the highest.
Cade,
and so
what Cade had like 50 at-bats.
I know. So did Josh. Rojas had like 50 games. So one, it shows you how bad Ty France was last year. And 2, it kind of shows you that they're kind of starting from scratch outside of those 3 guys. I mean, none of those 3 guys, Rojas, Moore, and Marlowe, are going to have a full-time role. Marlowe might not even be on the roster. And so they're starting fresh with these 4 guys that they brought in. Polanco and Garber and Haniger and Raley are going to be huge to replace, Suarez and Kelvick and Jay Oscar.
Yeah. To that Garber point, we have a full-time, like I was joking about a full-time second baseman. We have a full-time DH for the first time since Daniel Vogelbach and Nelson Cruz. We're not just running out. Oh man, if we pulled a list of just the random dudes that we threw out at DH, these guys shouldn't even be on MLB rosters, except for Mike Porter, of course.
We broke the MLB record for most players used in a season, like consecutive years, bad. I think.
Yeah.
Not last year, but a couple years prior. I think we
and
used
especially
like
coming
40
from the
players
team,
by like June.
coming from a team that has the greatest DH of all time, Edgar Martinez. Like we gotta like it's a very. You look at teams that are consistent and win. They have consistent DHs that produce, that get RBIs, that will hit you 15 to 20 home runs. Like, and Garver's going to be that guy. And also, too, a lot of people, and I've been listening to a lot of Shannon Dreher down in spring training, and she's talking about how Garver is, he's really stepped into that leadership role in this clubhouse, too, with Mitch. Because he's one of the veteran players on this team. When you're looking at this lineup, like, it's really the old guys in the group are Mitch Garver and Mitch Haniger, the Mitches. So that's one thing that I was a little worried about losing Gino. Like, I mean, I'm great. We're not going to have his strikeouts anymore. But I think that leadership role will definitely be missed. But it's nice to know that you got guys like Mitch Garver and Mitch Haniger coming back in to fill that.
So for me, I think Luke Raley is going very unnoticed because Luke Raley is very good.
Okay.
I had him in my Deep Dynasty Fantasy League last year. And before he got injured, he can hit and he can run. He can get you a lot of stolen bases. And I think for a big guy, yeah, he's huge and he can run. I don't get it. And I think that's going to be very important to the Seattle Mariners, especially early in the season, is to limit those strikeouts and to be able to run a little bit. Now, I am concerned about the defense. I think our defense is going to be pretty poor in 2024.
Hey, give Perry Hill a chance.
Dude, infield coach Perry Hill's probably just like, this is what you're giving me to work with, guys. He probably loves it, honestly.
He does.
But yeah, I mean, I think Luke Raley's gonna be very good for the Mariners, and nobody's talking about him. They're all talking about like what's going on at third base. Who now we have full-time DH, full-time second baseman. Like, who's these backup catchers? They're all talking about Haniger in the outfield. Not really seeing much chatter about Luke Raley, so I am excited about him.
France is absolutely going to play third base this year a lot.
Also, Ty France driveline season. We got to talk about that. JP came out at the best year of his career post driveline. Ty France.
Here, you've been talking to me too much.
But I don't know. One point I want to talk about. You talked about one of you guys said Canzone breakout year. I actually am excited to see Canzone play a little bit more because I think he's young enough that he could step into a really good role for this team. I think he's got a lot of pop, and we'll see what a new. One thing I heard is he put on like 20 pounds of muscle, which is good to hear.
It is the best shape of your life, Steven.
Yeah, exactly on the Brock and Salk body report or whatever they want to say, where they're looking down there at spring training. But yeah, I agree with you, Zach. I'm excited about Luke Raley too. I think he was pretty good in Tampa. And I think that was a steal for our boy Cabby, who we appreciate, who loved Caballero. So we don't need any more dang middle infielders, especially now that will give us the prospects. We're going to have a log jam in middle infield here coming out.
Mm-hmm. Did that deal seem weird? Like, why did the Rays take that?
I kept waiting for it to be like, and then there's a player to be named later. It's like, oh, we gave up like a comp pick. We gave up some like number 10 prospect or like something.
I think the Rays,
what's the catch?
I think the Rays are just banking on them being good because they have the prospects coming up. They have Carson Williams at shortstop. They have Curtis Mead, and then they have Kevin Arrow. And I think between those guys, it's just like, can we buy a gap year with Caballero, let him play second base for a year, and then we have these guys on the way? Is my guess.
It's
I did see yesterday he's hitting 313 in the spring with a homer.
He was a 2-win player last year. He's not bad. He's got a lot of potentials. Yeah.
Teams who trade the Rays usually regret it.
Like us?
Yes, especially us, since we only trade with like 3 teams.
The Rays, Giants, Reds. That's it.
D-backs.
And D-backs. Yes. Best. 14.
My main thing for 2024 is, it's same thing for 2023, but the rotation health is going to tell the story. If we can limit, we know that there's certainly a ceiling on this lineup that's as currently constructed. It's not going to be elite. The rotation's going to have to carry it. The bullpen's going to have to be patched together at least out of the gates, but it should still be a strength. But if we can limit the number of AAA and waiver wire guys that Jerry pulls off the streets, making starts, or can cover at least enough bullpen games just to patch it together, I think we're going to make the playoffs. Very cautiously optimistic about this lineup staying healthy. There's all the guys we brought in have health concerns. So to bank on that it's borderline irresponsible. But if we can keep Tommy Malone from making a random start or two for like the 5th consecutive season, I would love that. That's usually my barometer of like, what's the rotation health like for the year? How many times did Tommy Malone come out of absolutely nowhere? If we just put the ball in play, make consistent contact, I think we're do just fine. It is going to come down to a couple games, though. We know that. Even if we play our best, stay healthy, it's going to be us and the Astros, probably the Rangers, somewhere in the mix. It's gonna come down in the final week. And then, like Jer said, the driveline impact. If they can do, I don't know what they did to J.P. Crawford to turn what was just like a nice glove, good leadership guy with good vibes and cool sunglasses into like a plus offensive contributor with some like sneaky pop. Like what could they do with Ty? And we saw it when we picked him up from the Padres. He was awesome for a couple of years there, and he just really fell off. Obviously, leading the league and by pitch every year, not great, but getting hits a skill. So if we can get back to even like 2021, 2022 version of, or 2020, 2021 version of Ty, that'd be huge. And to have a second baseman, I mean, that'll be great. But we need to have a pull for third base. The current plan that is being sold to us is just, it's not good enough. It's not acceptable for a team that says it's serious. It can't happen when you have Urias
JD Davis
as your
is on waivers right now.
Your one up, your 1A, your backup is Bill Moore, and I am the biggest Bill Moore fan in the world. Well, he's a 200 hitter, maybe at best, which doesn't make any sense to me because he's such a good athlete and it seems like he should be better than he is. But they need to do something there.
I think a lot of it does ride on the pitching staff. I think you're totally right, Steve. Especially with the young guys, Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. How many innings can they contribute to you, to the Mariners in 2024? I mean, Miller's workload, he's fine. He could throw 180 innings or whatever, and he'd be okay. But is he going to be able to be adaptable? Our team's going to figure him out like they did last year. And Wu's a little unpredictable. I mean, he hasn't really thrown that many professional innings. I could definitely see at the deadline the Mariners targeting a rental starting pitcher to bring him in, somebody like a Shane Bieber from the Guardians, somebody like that, just to help out the pitching staff, give us some more depth. Because, Emerson Hancock was a first-round pick, but I'm not putting all my eggs in his basket, that's for sure.
It seems like the Mariners are. He's absolutely making 5 to 10 starts if it's constructed as it is now,
Yeah. And to that point, one thing, like I in this offseason, I was pretty worried, like a little. I liked some of the moves. I liked when they brought Mitch Haniger back, and I liked the signing of Mitch Garver. I was worried when they didn't have a second baseman or a third baseman, and then I will say when they did make the Polanco move, I was like, okay, because you look at Polanco's numbers, and I know he's been dealing with injuries, but when Polanco is healthy, he's an all-star second baseman who can hit 20 to 30 home runs. Like, I think his highest, Zach, you probably know, his highest home run total.
He hit 30 in 2022,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Banged up last year.
If you can get that from your second baseman, and we saw him hit a home run today or yesterday, dead center, that'd be huge. And one thing I want to point out about Ty, I was listening to him on Rock and Zop, shout out, Tech when they were in Arizona last week, and you were talking to him about driveline and what he experienced, and his biggest thing was like, he thought his swing looked like crap when he actually looked into it, and he said a lot of things that they've done is he said he probably won't get hit as much this year just because he said he's kind of had to cheat and for those balls on the outside of the plate, but he said like the way he's set up is now. He feels more comfortable attacking the whole plate with not being as close to the plate. Of course, he still got hit in his first game, I think, in spring training. I think that was funny. But that is something that, I mean, I think we'd all be eager to see if Ty could hit 20 plus homers. Like, we know he's strong. He's a big dude. Like, if he could hit 20 plus homers, if he can just make solid contact and strike out less and just be a more everyday regular first baseman in terms of numbers, because this is the thing, he still did hit 250 last year.
His power was
253.
like zapped last year.
His power was, it was nothing. So if he can hit for at least 250, but then also give you 20 plus homers, that's going to be huge for them. So, but as you said, these are guys with Haniger, Polanco, dudes that have had injury history. So we've not only our pitching needs to stay healthy, our lineup needs to stay healthy too.
Anything else you guys want to touch on for 2024 before we get into prospects?
Oh, I was looking at the schedule, and the Mariners have a very easy start. So I'm interested to see what they do. You know, they've gotten off to slow starts the last few years. They start with 13 of their first 22 games at home. 16 of those 22 games are against non-playoff teams. And so, and then after that, it's Texas and Arizona, so 2 World Series teams, and then Atlanta and Houston, which are the 2 presumptive World Series teams this year. So, you know, they really got to get off to a good start because they have it, and they have a tough middle of the season schedule for sure. But we do end with the A's this year, so that's good. If we're in the hunt, we at least end with the A's.
September, I remember looking at the schedule. September is not easy again this year.
No, the Rangers end with 2 series against the Angels and the A's, so that's not helpful for us. And the Astros, I looked this up, they have 20 of their last 29 against the Angels, A's, Guardians, Royals, and Reds. So the Astros and Braves have a nice, easy September. So we better get out to a nice lead in the summer.
Hey, don't be slouched on the Royals and the Reds. I've heard good things.
I like the Reds this year.
Yeah, the Reds might be
Royals,
right.
not so much. I wouldn't say I like anyone in the AL Central.
I liked the Reds a lot more before Noelvi Marte went down just the other day for PED, so that wasn't very cool.
Oh, yeah. Safe to say we won that trade.
Maybe. We gave a lot of prospects. A lot of them could pop out.
One of them's back. Came right back.
That's true.
All right, so speaking of prospects, let's get into some of the top prospects for the Mariners. Major League Baseball, MLB.com just came out with the top 30 prospects for every team. I'm sure you guys looked over those. Who are some guys that stand out to y'all? For me, I'm really glad that the Mariners didn't trade kind of any of like their top 5 dudes. So Cole Young, Cole Emerson, Laz Montez, Felman Celestin, and Harry Ford. I kind of had them as like untouchable in my head going into the offseason. So I'm glad that all 5 of them are coming back or are still with us. But yeah, any of you guys want to chat prospects?
Yeah, I mean, I have.
Oh, sorry.
I'm so. No problem. I'm so excited about these top. I said a top 4, you know, because Feldman might take a while, but you know, Ford, Cole Young, Montez, Emerson are all somewhat knocking on the door, with different levels of knocking on the door at some point in the next few years, and it'll be interesting. The key to me is seeing if any of these guys can match up with that current core I talked about, like, you know, the core, the JP Cal, Julio core. I think all of them will, you know, Julio will be around, but can we match up with JP Cal? Can we match up when we have this awesome rotation? Can they contribute in time, you know, to be a real, to contribute to that core? So it'll be interesting to see how quickly they can get up here. The Mariners historically do not rush their prospects up, I don't think. And so, yeah, I'll be super interested to see how quickly we might see. I think we might see Cole Young this year. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the year, maybe next year. But that's probably it for this year. So it'll be exciting to see if the offense can improve. The Mariners are obviously very heavily offensively minded in prospects. So
I think it was really interesting just to even look back at like the last draft where we had like 3 top 30 picks, and like Mariners, like, it seemed to me like they sat down and said, yep, our rotation it's locked in for the next 5 years. They took three high upside bats, and the early returns are very promising. And then you even look at like their top 10, it's loaded position players, 4 shortstops, and the top 7 prospects. Granted, some of those guys might have to move off the position, but I mean, you draft shortstops, move them elsewhere, third base, shortstop, or third base, second base, sometimes even somewhere in the outfield. But just the athleticism that you're seeing, and just a lot of guys with good bats, maybe not elite bats, but it's very exciting. So one of the things I'm really curious to watch this year is I don't think Cole Young is going anywhere at all. I don't think they have any interest in trading Emerson. But again, you got two more shortstops in your top 7. And with the relative dearth of pitching prospects knocking on the door, I wouldn't be surprised. And I'd probably be pretty interested in maybe trading one of those other 2 guys for some MLB ready help, maybe a AAA type of guy to give us that extra buffer should guys go down the rotation this year. We're going to need more than the 5 plus Emerson Hancock. We're going to need 5, 6, 7, 8 guys, most likely. And I think it's interesting that I was so excited, even the day they signed Lazaro Montes, knowing absolutely nothing about him. Certainly excited, but I was like, I was on the Baby Jordan train from day one. Like, when is the last time that we had a physically imposing guy in the batter's box? I can't remember. It feels
Julio.
Like it's Julio now. It's crazy how big Julio actually is, because he doesn't really play that big. But probably
you see a picture of him next to DK Metcalf. He's
exactly
the same size.
Exactly. But
I saw him at spring training next to all the other guys. He's just like, he's a different person. He's like playing with kids. He's giant. But yeah, it's Nelson Cruz is probably the answer.
Yeah, but just like when Jordan Alvarez steps in the batter's box for the Astros, it's like, oh man, like he is just imposing. Like that's worth something, rather than sending out these DHs that we've sent out there in last. And you mentioned earlier, we are Garver now DH, but we haven't had a DH in years, and just been a revolving door of light hitting utility guys that were just passioned together. That goes all the way back to the Jose Vidro experiment, which we all know how great that was. But I mean, Lazaro, he could just be a true building block, and I would be devastated if we traded him. Harry Ford, I think, is an interesting one because we have Cal. But I mean, you see it every year in the draft. Teams with 8 catchers, they still draft catchers very high. You can never have enough catchers, and especially since Cal is represented by Boris. I mean, you can't count on that. Cal says he wants to stay, but until pen to paper, who knows? So I think you got to have Ford, and there's not a lot of other catching. If you look at like our top 15, 20 prospects, not a lot of catchers in the mix. But yeah.
Well, the good news is Ford is still so young. He's 21. Like, how old is Cal? Cal's probably 27 now, 26?
Yeah, he's
Cal?
He's somewhere in there.
So, but that's the thing, yeah. So it's going to be. I agree with you, Steve. Like, the one thing that worries me is he's got Boris high, and we just saw what was it, the Boris 4 they were calling him, that just have taken the longest to sign. But the thing that I want to talk about too is this team historically has been so good at drafting pitchers, and generally we've had to trade for bats or trade, because we don't really sign anyone. But it's been cool to look at this list, and especially who they've drafted recently, and just all the great position players, and even the ones that they drafted last year and that we've been seeing recently this week. I've seen a couple clips of Johnny Formello. That kid can fly. I saw a triple he hit the other day where he just jogged around the bases of third, and like everyone has said that he might be the fastest player on the team, like Johnny Formello. And then we got to talk about my guy Ryan Bliss, who might hit 470 in Tacoma this year. Listen, I think like he's shown up at spring. He's done exactly probably what they want him to do. I think he is a positive out of that Paul Sewald trade that I talked about earlier. And I'm like Andrew. I'm like, I tend to try and be optimistic. And as much of a bummer as it was to lose Paul, because Paul is, I think, such a great impact player in this team. I do really love that we got Ryan Bliss out of that. I think that Jerry had talked about Ryan Bliss as someone they've been targeting and they wanted for a while, and they had to work to get Ryan Bliss in that trade. And I think he could surprise some people. We'll see. He's a guy that you're going to want because we have Jorge Polanco on this team who has not been healthy. If Jorge Polanco gets hurt in May and you need a second baseman and Bliss is down in Tacoma hitting 380, 390, he probably will because he's a really just consistent hitter. And we've seen in the short time he was in Tacoma last year, and then when he was in Double A, he was just raking the ball. So I really am excited about him. I think he's a little underrated at 12. But I agree with what you guys are saying. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with their shortstop prospects because you have JP Crawford and you have so many shortstops. You probably will have to either move their position, see if one of them can get big enough to be a third baseman because I don't see a lot of third basemen here besides Michael Arroyo. So it's
Cole
going to be interesting
Emerson,
because
they're saying he's grown like a lot, even just since last draft.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. So that's going to be interesting. It's just cool to see that we've got these guys in the pipe that we have drafted and we've mostly drafted and then acquired like this. But because I was looking at our starting rotation, it's so cool to see 4 of the 5 guys we've drafted, which is rare. I feel like in Major League Baseball that are really good. So it's cool to see that they can not only draft pitchers well, but also draft hitters well. And another player I do think we might see this year is Tyler Locklear. We've talked a little bit about him in our chat. If Ty's not healthy, if Ty gets a random injury because some jerk on the Astros hits him or something, like it usually happens, and you need a first baseman, he might come up and play a couple games. We'll see. I don't know. But I think right now, MLB as a whole is not as aware of how good this farm system is. I think that Jerry and team have done a really good job at replenishing this system. And I think you'll see that reflected in the rankings throughout the year as we see these minor league teams probably do really well.
You didn't mention the possibility that Ty France could just be our everyday third baseman that we need first baseman.
I mean, you saw it firsthand, Ange. You saw it doing the drills. How do you look?
But he looks pretty good. No errors. I liked it.
How's his range looking?
I didn't see a lot of range. Not a lot of left to right, but
just
who needs range at third base? Yeah, who needs range at third base? Leave that to JP. I have a question about JP, the prospect adjacent. So he's going to be 31 when his contract is up in I think 2025, 26. I think he's a free agent for the 26 season. With all the shortstops that you mentioned, where do you think the M's are at with JP? Are they going to try to re-sign him again to another contract?
I think knowing Jerry, he's probably going to wait until he sees that. Jerry usually waits till the year before, right when they're gonna . So I would say in the 25 season, if he's still producing like he is last year, maybe.
Yeah,
but
he's got to do it. He's got to do it for 2 seasons.
Yeah,
to prove that this is a real lasting change to his approach and his ability to be a contributor on offense. But I have a bit of a sidebar for this and the previous topic. It is such a dream for the JP and Cole Young double play combo, and we haven't seen double play combo up the middle like that on the Mariners in years. But just to throw JP some love, because I mean that's important. He just flies under the radar so much still. The Mariners have never had, to my knowledge, an official captain in franchise history, but he has. And we talked about this in our chat off and on, but I feel like he's established himself as he's 100% at this point the heartbeat of the team, especially after taking away Kyle Seager and Mark Gonzalez in recent years. Let's make it official.
Give him a C. I agree, Steve. I don't know how many teams have done that. That'd be an interesting stat to look up. How many teams have officially given a C? I know Veritek on the Red Sox comes to mind first. I don't know any others off the top of my head.
Derek Jeter.
Big Jeter, but they didn't give him a C on the jersey.
Maybe we got to wait until he resigns the new contract. But just some Cooper thought.
Now Aaron Judge, he's the captain of the Yankees, and then Salvador Perez, catcher for the Royals. He wears a C on his jersey as the captain for the Royals.
Mariner killer Salvador Perez.
Yeah,
and he does kill the Mariners. I'm down. I'm down to give the C to JP. I think everybody in the clubhouse knows that he is the captain. It's just a matter of team wise if they want to implement that or not. Andrew, to your question, I feel like I agree with Steve that JP needs to do it one more year. whether it be 25, 26. I feel like the development of both Felnin, Celestin, and Ty Pete will be a big indicator as well. We haven't really seen Celestin play because he was injured last year, but people just rave about Felnin, so he could be your shortstop of the future.
Recently.
And then Ty Pete, I mean, arguably the best athlete in the whole system for the Mariners, Ty Pete and Brody Hopkins. So see what his development looks like. Maybe he could be your shortstop as well. I do think that the plan is Cole Young at second base and Cole Emerson at third base when they get up to the bigs. I think you could see Cole Young at the end of this year, more likely at the beginning of next year, especially if the Mariners are playing some big, intense games in September. I don't know if that's the time you want to put Cole Young out there. Maybe it is. And then Harry Ford, probably see him late 2025, with Cal Raleigh, get a lot of experience and maybe even take on the catching role full time if they do, unfortunately, lose Cal Raleigh to contract wars. It's really hard to sign hitters in Seattle. Nobody wants to hit in Seattle. That's why they drafted so many hitters, especially the high school hitters. But I think they'll draft pitchers in 2024. They have to draft some college arms. Like I was texting you guys, Brody Breck from Iowa, Chase Burns from Wake Forest. These like high end, ready to go right now college arms that can contribute very quickly and move up. Pitching in the bigs in 2025. The two guys I'm highest on are Cole Emerson and Laz Montez. I mean, all of like the Baseball America and the MLB Pipeline guys, Jim Kalish, Jonathan Mayo, they're all raving about Cole Emerson. They're saying, like, people in the industry, scouts are saying, have you seen Cole Emerson play yet? And he put on weight, and this kid is just a crazy good hitter. I hope that he's better than Kyle Seager over at third base for the Mariners for many years to come. But I have heard him compared to Kyle Seager just because he's in the Mariners system. But I think Cole Young and Harry Ford are both going to be big pieces for the Mariners going forward. But I really like the upside of Emerson and Jordan, Lazaro Montes for sure. Any other prospects you guys want to touch on? Pitchers? I love Jeter Martinez, probably because he's from Mexico. But a lot of big things about Jeter Martinez. I'm excited to see him pitch at some point. Anybody else you want to touch on before we kind of get things wrapped up here?
You think this is just a question on Ford and Montez? Do you think that what would they do if they had Cal, Ford, and Montez already late 25 or Ford? Do they give Cal a first base club? Do they get Montez out in the outfield? He seems like he's a DH for sure, but what do you think they do if they're all ready to contribute?
You might be able to get away with Montez in left field or something like that. You can just hide him out there, but
yeah,
he can play anywhere.
Or can
maybe
play
not short,
anywhere. But if as soon as you take him off the catcher position, it's hard to go back to catching. I think you just try to keep Montez as athletic as long as you can, and just tell him he's going to play in the outfield, and then let his body, kind of fall into that DH role. I mean, I don't know how long you'll have Cal Raleigh and Montez in the same lineup, like how many years that would happen. But hopefully it's a lot of years, right? Hopefully we have them both and they both absolutely rake from the left side of the plate in T-Mobile.
Yeah. I want to just comment on Celestin again, because what you were saying, Zach, I was listening to Julio's interview down in spring training, and he was raving about Celestin. He was saying, like, dude is just crazy athletic. Like, he can do everything. And this is the thing, he's so young. He's 18 years old. So he's in a similar situation as like when they signed Julio. So it's like, hopefully, you could see the development of a player like that comes up, and maybe he is your shortstop of the future if JP, does decline. And who knows? But it's definitely a better position, I think, than we were a couple of years ago. Let's just say, at least position player wise. But I agree, they're going to definitely probably draft a lot of pitchers in June or July, whatever the draft is.
Not soon enough. The answer.
These college arms, man, they're insane. You guys got to watch some more college baseball. Okay. So anything else you guys want to touch on before we kind of like wrap things up here? Any thoughts? Anything you want to mention? Anything that's on your mind about Mariners baseball as a whole in general?
I got a couple quick ones. I mean, the whole reason for our chat is, or that we talk all the time is, and something we joke about all the time is like we talk to the people in this call more than anyone else in our lives except for our wives, um, potentially more. But the reason we're all here is because we love the Mariners win or lose, and just the dialogue. I mean, that's also part of just the beauty of baseball. You go to a game, you're able to have a conversation with your friends. You're able to connect and be present in the game, be present in your conversation at the same time. You don't really have that opportunity in other types of sporting events, which is a beautiful thing. But I wanted to touch on a couple additional memories specific to baseball, some of them that I've shared with people on this call. But I miss watching Lou Piniella lose his mind at the Kingdom, throw the bases, rub dirt all over the plate. And I don't remember, Andrew probably named the year, but 20-something years ago, we took a trip out to Yankee Stadium, or we did an East Coast baseball trip. And we did Yankee Stadium, Shea Stadium, Fenway, and the Hall of Fame. And we were lucky enough where the Mariners lined up to play. They were playing at Shea Stadium. And it was Felix versus Johan, just a dream game for us when Johan was like the height of his powers still. And I think Andrew got a ball from Ichiro during batting practice, which we were down the right field line, I think. He pointed us out.
Yep.
Andrew caught the ball. I'd love to hear his thoughts on that in a second, how special that was. But that was also the game that Felix hit the grand slam off of Johan. I think he hit it like out to right center, like right in front of the apple that they used to have that would go up on home runs. And I just remember being in the upper deck, and we were the only people in the entire stadium standing. And everyone else was just like, what in the world is happening? For us, it was just such a surreal experience and something I'll never forget. But I'd love to hear Andrew's thoughts on that day as well.
Yeah, well, my favorite part was that for some reason we were not sitting together. We went with our dads, and Steve and his dad were a couple sections over. Like I think we were down the left field line, and we were a couple sections over. And so we would look over at each other, and yeah, you could look through the whole stadium, and no one was standing up at us. No one was traveling to watch the Mariners play the Mets. No Mariners fans were traveling for that. And so it was really cool. Yeah, Ichiro threw me a ball at batting practice. That was fun.
The Mariners were not good that year, I don't think.
No, so it was 2008, I believe. It was summer of 2008 that I don't remember. They were okay in 2009, but I do not think they were good in 2008. But yeah, that was a really special day and a special trip.
Another one of my favorite memories. Sorry, this is memory time. Perhaps my favorite day in T-Mobile was the Sean O'Malley game. Is Ken Griffey Jr. He got his number retired. We were all there for pregame. Watched number 24 get hung up, and they're playing the Angels. I think it was either Friday or Saturday night. They fell behind early, and they're just like battling back the whole game. And they're just like, come on, they got to do this for Griffey. I'm pretty sure like Griffey got on the mic like mid game, and like he's like, we're gonna do this. Which that
it was keep fighting. That was his whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they took the whole year to keep saying that after he did.
And then like Sean O'Malley, like local Seattle kid, undersized, like scrappy player, never really gonna have like much of an MLB career, right? Never gonna like amount to much. But he was playing for the Mariners, and he came up, and I think it was either bottom 7, bottom 8. And he just hits this home run, just like yanks it down the right field line. We just knew it was gone. And just to have like the hometown kid hit that go ahead home run, and have 45,000 people in the stadium just chanting Sean O'Malley. It just like felt like we were like living in a movie. It was like such a surreal, special moment. And I don't know if we're just all like very lucky to be there.
I love those memories, Steve. Couple memories for me. I remember when I was 7, my dad took me and my brothers to Tiger Stadium to see the Mariners play, and we were waiting after the game outside of Tiger Stadium, and Griffey came out, and he was signing some kids, signing autographs for some kids, and then he walked up to his taxi or whatever, and I was like all bummed, and then he turned and like looked right directly at me, pointed at me, and said, "Hey, come over here." And I was just like stunned, and my parents were like, "Dude, go over there." So I ran up to his cab, and he signed my ball, and I still have it. And that's another big reason why I have been a Mariners fan for so long and a big Griffey fan. I wish I was there during that induction ceremony that you guys were there for, and Cooperstown was probably just insane when he was inducted to the Hall of Fame, him and Mike Piazza that year. Ichiro's coming up pretty soon, so that'll be really special. I don't know if any of you guys are going. But when all of us went to that 18-inning game against the Astros 2022, I mean, it's a great memory. It's a tough memory because our season ended, and I just remember going back to your house after that, Steve, just like totally exhausted.
I'm still not like recovered from that game.
But it was just from the first pitch, like the entire stadium was on their feet and like cheering for every single pitch. It was just insane because I've been to plenty of Mariners games.
Kirby threw 7 shutout.
Yeah, and now he's my guy because of that game. You know, president of the Kirby fan club. So those are definitely 2 big memories that stand out for.
The thing that hurts me from that game was I remember what inning it was. Maybe it was like 14 or something. Like Julio hit a double off the left field wall. It came up just like inches short. I was like, if that ball just could have got legs and got over, that would have dipped.
He slid into second. He broke his finger when he slid into second on that double.
Mm-hmm. I know the story of their season though. Just
so close.
I
just remember how stressed we were
to get over the hump.
I just remember how stressed we were about getting the tickets and making sure we had them all, and then the fact that we had to like set up multiple spring training packages or season ticket packages to make sure we got everything we needed. That was pretty crazy, but it was definitely. I just know that we all said like we have to be that, and I'm glad we were, because that is what Seattle Mariner baseball should be. And it should be like that in May because the team is just so good. And it can be. So we'll see. I'm excited about this year. That's the best thing. And I remember just thinking about Dave Niehaus and what he would always say, and how every spring is just a new opportunity, and just everyone has so much energy at the start of baseball season because it doesn't matter what happened in the past. You got a new 162 games. And I think we got a good team. We'll see. We've talked about all those different factors, but I'm excited to see what happens this year and get my daughter out to her first game, hopefully this summer. That'll be pretty fun. A little baby on my chest.
Ange, you got anything before we wrap up here? You good?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're all sharing memories, I'll just share one quick one. I mean, my favorite first memory was 2021, just a few years ago, when Mitch Haniger hit that 2-run single against Angels. Yeah, the Angels. Steve Cishek is the word I'm looking for.
Yes,
Port Mariner, Steve Cishek. And that place was crazy. They were really itching for a playoff game. Did not quite make it happen in game 162. That was game 161, and that was fun. I mean, the playoff game was incredible. Felix coming out to throw the first pitch. That's the loudest I think I've ever heard at the stadium before. That was an incredible experience. I'm thinking we're going to get hopefully some more playoff games this year.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody wanting to do this and doing like a fun Mariners roundtable. So I appreciate all you guys joining. For those of you that stuck around this far in the podcast, thank you. Hopefully you learned a couple things about the Mariners. Please follow the Big League Dreaming podcast. Follow us on Twitter, X, at BLD Pod, at BLD POD. Send us an email. We'd love to connect with you. bigleaguedreaming@gmail.com. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you find your podcast. And thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.